What's going on, everybody? So it's been probably about a couple of months here since I made a video like this talking about Paragon trees. Early on, it mattered a ton because you weren't high enough level to go ahead and pick up a couple of the trees, maybe like that level 50. I also made one later on about level 100, 150, because we had a lot more stats to pick from. But now that we've reached that like 330, 340 level, you can see I'm 315 right now, but we have reached the point where it started to become where you could get a lot of different stats and stuff. So I want to talk about the ones that I've gone for and ones that I think pretty much everyone should go for. There's two different strategies you can go for depending on what class or what type of thing you want to go for in PvP. But in PvE, everyone should go with the strategy. So let's go into it. All right, so we're hopping into the Paragon menu, and you can see in the left-hand corner, this is something that someone showed me like 2 months back, but you can actually see all the stats that you're actually able to acquire from the Paragon tree. You can see I have a total of 2,600 free damage that you're acquiring from the Paragon. So for you new players out there, because I know we have a lot of those coming into the game, or beginner type players, the best way to continue to progress is get levels. Just get levels, because not only you're going to get the Paragon tree upgrades, which is just a bunch of damage, a bunch of life, but you're also going to get higher levels in terms of combat rating, which is very, very important. So that's going to be your number one priority. But let me just go through and talk about the general strategy here for PvE, and then talk about PvP potentially. So for your trees themselves, I highly recommend you go with all the top rows for Treasure Hunter, okay? The bottom row isn't that big of a deal, because the reason why we're using Treasure Hunter is not to speed up our farming, okay? It's to get more value out of our farming, because farming in general is so instantaneous that it does not matter. And I'm talking about open world farming because this is where it primarily is used for. I also use it in dungeons because I oftentimes am strong enough to go ahead and not hinder the time I spend in dungeons by running Treasure Hunter, so the extra XP is going to be valuable. This is one tree I recommend you get. This is only 54 points, and you're also going to pick up a lot of nodes in here that I would have recommended you pick up anyways, even if you didn't want Treasure Hunter in of itself. Again, this is going to massively increase the amount of legendary items you acquire and XP you get over a long period of time. You will definitely get a lot of value from this. The second tree I would recommend here, and this is only if you PvP, but this isn't necessarily the PvP strategy, but I do recommend, even if you're PvEing, having a potential PvP tree. Regardless, you will oftentimes go for all these nodes anyways, because we are looking for those damage nodes, but getting 63 points, ignoring the Trapper and the Rapid Recovery down here. These things are okay. They're not terrible, of course. Uncontrollable, getting a reduced cooldown is decent, but it's a lot of points into armor, which is generally not going to be super useful. And I'll go over that in just a moment. So 63 points, double top row, just like Treasure Hunter for Gladiator. After that, that's when we start to get into the points. Keep in mind that for those of you that are new players and may not understand the Paragon system, the damage nodes or the attribute nodes actually stay no matter what tree you're using. So this damage node is going to be applicable even if I'm running Treasure Hunter, even though it's in Survivor. The actual skill nodes are what you're activating. So I have Treasure Hunter activated, but all the other damage and stat nodes are completely viable despite me not having that tree activated. So what we're going to be doing with our remaining points after we've gotten the 54 in Treasure Hunter and the 63 in Gladiator is going down the line, starting with Vanquisher. All right, so Vanquisher you're going to want to run, and I'll move myself over here so you guys can actually see this a little bit easier. But we're going to go damage, and then we're going to go straight south into Armor Pen, okay? Armor Pen and damage are the two top priorities. Just to give you an example here, or why that's so important, is if we just jump into the more attributes here, the 4 options that we have is armor, armor pen, potency, and resistance. Potency, resistance is going to basically reduce the duration of CC and harmful effects on you, which isn't necessarily important in PvE because you aren't going to be dying for the most part, right? You don't need to reduce or increase your tankiness. You need to increase your damage to speed up content. Potency is going to increase the duration of harmful effects you apply to enemies, which can be okay, especially in some bleed builds, but oftentimes it doesn't really matter compared to armor and armor pen. Now, let me just get this straight, because a lot of people have armor confused. Like they don't understand armor. They read this part: reduces all damage taken and increases your blocked amount. This doesn't reduce all damage taken in an absolute sense. What it does is actually decrease enemy critical hit damage. That's what it does. Not all damage. This initial statement doesn't actually give you the right representation of what armor does. You can see in the second paragraph, it actually describes what exactly this does. This is like a TLDR here. You can see here, ignore some enemy armor, increases critical hit damage, compared to against enemy resistance to modify the duration of harmful effects. Again, this is like a TLDR at the beginning, and then it actually goes into explain the rest of it. It says your armor is 83 lower than expected for your level in your current activity and difficulty, decreasing your damage reduction from blocking. So that's where all damage reduction is interesting, because, okay, if you block, you actually increase the amount of damage you block, and it also decreases if you happen to have more armor than they have critical or armor pen, then it's going to decrease enemy critical hit damage, which is very, very important. You can see armor pen ignores some enemy armor and increases critical hit damage. Very, very important for you to have this on your character. So since we have those stats, those are the ones we're going to be looking for, but I don't really care about armor that much because, again, I don't care about being tankier in any content unless it's PvP, right? So we're going for armor pen, damage, then we're going to continue moving onwards into survivor. This one, you're going to go straight through all the way down to this damage node. Then we're going to move on to soldier here, and we're going to move straight south into the damage node, and then following that up with the armor pen node, which I'm still working on. And then mastermind, we're going to go straight to the damage node, which we're going to pick up that armor pen node. All right, so we're going to get all those different, stats. And in treasure hunter, even if you didn't care about treasure hunter, guess what? Armor pen's already right here. Greed is a very easy pickup, and treasure hunter is not that many points invested into. Gladiator, your damage node's at the very end anyways. So guess what? Just one more point, you get cheat death, which is the most important part about Gladiator. So already we get to acquire all of that just by going for the damage and armor pen nodes, essentially. Now, once you reach about Paragon 326, you're going to get every single armor pen and damage node possible. This is going to be massive. If you can see here, I have a total of 2,600 damage and 276 armor pen. This is going to increase to roughly about 300 armor pen, which is going to be very, very useful, because if you look here, armor pen, I'm going to increase my critical hit damage by 43% in Hell 5. This is Hell 5, by the way. This is going to be a massive increase in damage, especially if you're going to be running, depending on what your class is, barbarians, crusaders. If you have a crusader in your group, it's going to increase critical hit damage. This is very, very important for you to acquire these stats, okay? Then, after we acquire all that, what do we do next? Well, that's where it starts to get a little bit interesting. And actually, I would probably recommend going for deeper pockets, because it's going to give you extra inventory rows and some extra, I believe the second one it's extra crafting rows. So you get 3 inventory rows and like 2 crafting space rows or gem rows, which is very, very weird. But this is going to increase your overall viability in terms of staying out longer for open world farming. And then finishing off zeal is actually something that I would recommend going for, because that is something that you could definitely go for in PvE to go ahead and increase your damage. But if you're someone that doesn't really care about kind of getting that very, very minute bonus in PvE, life nodes, and this is where I say the second strategy can come into place. Life is actually very, very powerful as well, and can definitely increase your tankiness in combination with armor, right? In PvE content, there are a lot of crits going out, or PvP content rather, there's a lot of crits going out. So comboing life with armor can make you a very, very tanky character, especially if you're a crusader, because you're gonna get more value out of your armor. And so going armor, life across all your trees, of course, going with Treasure Hunter and Gladiator already, just so that you can go ahead and get those stats, is going to give you a ton of tankiness, but you're obviously going to lose a lot of damage because you're going for that armor. However, if you don't care about armor, or if you don't care about damage because you're trying to be as tanky as possible, this is another strategy you can go for. Again, this is all because we are far enough in the Paragon system to be able to basically acquire most of the nodes and completely max out on a specific strategy. You don't really want to kind of mix, because it's kind of that jack of all trades, master of none. You either want to be that super high damage dealing character and then just stay alive in terms of positioning in PvP, or you're just going to want to be as tanky as possible and really commit to being that CC bot, whether you're a crusader or a monk or something like that. That's when you start to get like armor, potency, life, so you can get that high CC amounts and high tankiness, so you don't just insta pop when you enter the battle. So those are the 2 strategies. I wanted to go over this because it's been a while since I've talked about Paragon, and we've gotten a lot of points since then. Hopefully in the future, I think Step Scripts here knows me from my content Just looks like a big fan. Well, shout out to you, man. You're in a video right now, so thanks for watching the content. But if you guys want to check out more content, be sure to like the video, sub to the channel. And I wanted to make this video just so that anyone gets some more information on Paragon trees, especially for those new players coming out now, because I know that there's a small portion of us that are dedicated since the beginning of the game. There's also a lot of people out there that are starting out new and they don't really know what to do with their Paragon points from that 150 onwards mark. So get your levels, get higher combat rating. It's going to be the biggest power boost up until you reach Hell 5, and then it starts the infinite grind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.